So we are going to be adding some styling to this. And we will be modifying the aside section, which contains this text plus the graphic. What we're going to do is kind of constrain the width so it doesn't span the whole page. Okay, we're going to make it 30% of the page, which is going to bring the text and the graphic closer together. We are going to specify a height of 100 pixels. We're going to turn the auto flow on, or overflow on to auto. So basically, if somebody has a mobile device and they're looking at this and they can't see everything that is in that little section, they will be able to scroll and see it. We are going to make sure that the whole little section displays on the right, and that is done by using the float style. And we also want it displayed in line. So what that means is this little section is going to pop over here to the right, and then whatever's below is going to move up next to it. We are going to be applying a border to it. We are going to have some padding so the text isn't right up against the border. We're going to give it a little background color and put a little, actually a background image just in the aside section. And we'll be modifying the font, and also we're going to modify the top margin and make it negative so it moves up a little bit. So we're going to do all of that styling first. And then we're going to take a look so you can see that it did exactly what I said. Now we do need to open up the cake recipe CSS file. It should be in your CSS folder. So we need to right click, open that with, we want to actually open it in VS Code. So I'm going to select it here. And this is all we've got so far. So below article is where we're going to add the aside. And just kind of to refresh your memory, because you haven't been working with CSS all that long. So for the body, which is basically the visible portion of your page, we have set the font. We've got a couple different choices. If the user doesn't have either one of them on their computer, it goes to the generic sans serif. For the size, we have about 40% larger than the default. Okay, that's what 1.4 is doing. And we're setting the background color for the page itself to be black, and that's why you're seeing black around the outside. The main element has a width of 70%. So right under body is where main is located. So we kind of come up here and look. So you have your body section. That's everything in the visible portion of the page, and then below that you have main. So that 70% width is going to constrain everything that's on that page. And then we have the header, and the header is going to be 98%. So it's 98% of the space available. Okay, because main is limiting the space to 70%, and header is inside main. When we set header to 98%, we're saying it's going to take up 98% of the space available in main. And we're applying a background color. We're adding some padding so that the text isn't right up against the edge. And we're setting a margin at the top of 0. Then we're going to have a footer at the bottom. And again, that's going to be 98% of the space available in main. The background color is tan. We're going to make sure the text is centered. We've got padding so that it's not right up against the edge. And you'll notice we're making the font a little smaller here. Okay, so it's about 25% less in as far as size goes. And then we have article and a little hierarchy of tags here. Article shows up below the header. So we've got the opening and closing header, then we've got our article, and that pretty much contains everything else that's not in the header. And so for the article, we are also setting it at 98%, setting a background color and padding. So now we're ready to code aside. And for aside, first thing we're going to do is tell it to float right. And that's going to put that little box of content on the right-hand side. And then we're going to say display in line, which is going to allow content to display next to it. In this case, because we have float right, the content is going to display to the left. Oh, I think I got 2 colons there. No. Okay, so we got display in line, float right, and then we're going to set the width to 30. And the height is going to be 100 pixels. And because we're constraining the height, we are going to say overflow colon auto. That will automatically display scroll bars if we need them. I'm going to set a border. Inset is the style. Yep, I want that on the next line. So inset is the style. The width is going to be 10 pixels and the color is going to be tan. Yeah, it looks like it just threw in another tag. Sometimes the little helpers are not very helpful. Okay, that's what I wanted. So we've got padding, 10 pixels. And let's go ahead and put in a background color. And we're going to choose corn silk. And then we're going to do a background image. You might be thinking, well, if we have a background image, why are we setting a color? It just so happens that the image is somewhat transparent, so the color should show through. And our image is in our media folder, so we have to do .. because the CSS is in the CSS folder. We got to go up a level to the lesson 5 folder. Okay, and that's what .. does. And then once we're at the lesson 5 folder, we got to open up media. And then we want it to grab paper-texture.jpg. And after all of that, put a semicolon at the end. Now, for inside the aside section, we want the font size to be 12 point. And we're going to set a top margin of -20. Now, I'm going to put it at 0 at first, just so you can see why we made it negative. Now, let me save this. And we'll come out here. And let's refresh this. Nope. Okay, so you can see over here, I am getting the scroll bar. Okay, and I've got the background image, and it is over on the right-hand side. And that allowed this text to display on the left. And let's say I'd like it up a little further, just a little nudge up. Okay, and that is where the margin comes in. So let me come over here. So let's put in -20. Save it. Let's reload this. You can see it just brings it up a notch. Okay. And let's see, if I change my size, you can kind of see how that looks. And usually how I simulate mobile is I do something like this. I just kind of resize my browser. And that just kind of gives me a little idea of what it's going to look like in a mobile. Not all that awesome, but you can kind of see. And this is why you use the overflow auto, just so you don't always know what people are going to be using to display your page. Okay, so that was the aside section. We are also going to modify the heading 1 and heading 2. So this is heading 1, these are heading 2. We are going to make the color pale goldenrod, so it's going to be kind of a pale yellow. For the title up here, heading 1, we are going to apply a shadow to it. And we're going to change our font family so that it's more cursive. So we're going to use Brush Script MT, and if they don't have that, we'll just use the generic for cursive. We're going to make the text 3 times the normal size, and we're going to make sure it's center aligned. Okay, that's just for the title. For the subtitles, which are H2 elements, we are also going to make the color pale goldenrod, and then we're going to outline the letters in black. Okay, so we're kind of using a variation of text shadow to do that. And then we're going to use a little different font. It's Gill Sans MT, Calibri, Trebuchet MS. They don't have any of that. We're just using the generic sans serif font. We are going to put a border below ingredients, instructions to kind of separate our sections a little bit better. So we're going to use border bottom. And then we're going to add a little space between the letters. So we're actually doing quite a bit to these little subheadings. So let's go back over here. And we're going to do H1. We've got color, pale, goldenrod. I can see it right there. And then we are going to do text shadow. And for the H1, this is just the normal one. So we've got horizontal, vertical, level of blur, color. And then our font family, Brush Script MT, generic is cursive. Font size was 3 EM, so about 3 times the default. And we're going to make sure that this is center aligned. Then we'll come down here and do H2. So some of this is the same. So we are going to do pale goldenrod. I don't like to do any extra typing that I don't have to. So we've got pale goldenrod. I think the rest is different, unfortunately. Okay, so we've got text shadow. So this refers to where the line is going to be placed on the letter itself. Okay, so we have our first value entered, and that is the horizontal shadow. So a negative value moves the shadow above the text. Okay, so that would be our horizontal value. Our next value, 0, 1px and black, is also for the horizontal shadow. And it puts a line at the bottom of the letter. So we've got a line above the letter, a line at the bottom of the letter, and then our third value, 1px0 black, is a vertical line, and this is going to be to the right of the letter. And then we have 0, -1 px, black. This is also vertical, and it places a line to the left. And I think I did PT. That should be px. They all need to be px. That's what happens when I talk and type. Here we go. px. There we go. So again, first number, negative, that is going to put a line above the text. This is going to put a line at the bottom. These are horizontal. The last two values are vertical. The first one places a line to the right of the letter, and the next one places the line to the left of the letter. So once we've got that outline specified, our next thing we need to do is the font family. Several have 2 words, so I do need to put them in double quotes. And we're going to specify a bottom border. And let's put a little space between the letters. Now let's save this. And we'll come out here and reload it. Okay, so you can see right away what happened to our H1. And then we have our different sections here. I'm not seeing the bottom border. That means something got miskeyed. So let's go back in here and take a look. It looks like it does not like what I have there, so let's try that again. Border bottom. And I'm going to look at the line above that as well. Sometimes the error isn't on the line that you think. I missed a double quote. All right, I'm pretty sure that's where the problem was. Now let's go back over here. And there's our border. With CSS, it's kind of weird. From wherever your problem is down, it ignores the CSS. Okay, so my problem was in font family. I forgot a double quote. So it ignored the letter spacing and the bottom border. Just didn't apply them. But now you can see that we do have the space between the letters, and we do have that border. And that is why I like to check things right away after I key them in. Otherwise, it's really hard to find errors. So we're not quite done with the CSS. What we would like to have happen in this clickable part. Okay, so when we click on this, okay, we would like the text to display in Gill Sans MT, Calibri, Trebuchet, or Sans Serif. We want it to be about 25% bigger. We want it to be italics, and we want it to be brown. Okay, so to style the text so that only the text in this little clickable line changes, we have to specify that we want text that's in the details section and specifically the summary tag styled. So if we do details summary, we're being very specific about the text that we want styled. And the good news is the font family we've already entered, so I'm just going to copy paste it, and then I don't have to worry about typos. And for the font size, it's 1.25 EM. Font style is italic. And the color is going to be brown. So let's save it and take a look. Immediately you can see we've got the brown showing, and it is only on the text that is between the opening and closing summary tags. And that's exactly what we wanted. Now the last thing we're going to adjust is the space between our items that are in our numbered list and our bulleted lists, and even down here in our description list. We just want a little more space between the lines. They look a little scrunched. So what we're going to do is say for ordered lists, comma, unordered lists, comma, and description lists. What we want is the line height to be 25 point. So let's save all of this and let's reload. And you should have seen things shift a little bit, and it is a lot easier to read all of our list items now because they're not so close together vertically. Now we are going to make another little adjustment to main. It would look nice if we kind of offset this lovely lemon chiffon with a border. So what we're going to do is come back in here. We're going to find our main CSS because we already have some in here. And we're going to add border, groove, tan, and 30 pixel. So that's going to give us a pretty heavy line. Let's save that and reload. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and save our changes.